It works. Awesome. So I'm going to feel free to come closer. I'm just going to tell you a few stories. Just because I'm sure that you see a lot of slides and a lot of presentations, and I frankly think stories are a little bit more fun. Plus, I don't often get to tell stories about about Apple because, as you know, Apple is pretty well known for its secrecy. So the first story I'm going to tell you is how I ended up getting a job at Beets. And this will all make sense towards the end, so just roll with me here. So I was running a company called Pulslocker, a very small company. It was focused on providing subscription music to people who use DJ applications. I feel like I'm in Berlin. People will probably get this more than most places. And so the idea was if you're going to use a DJ application that was on your phone or in your laptop or anything to DJ, you'd be able to have access to subscription music that you could mix together. So I was the CTO of that company, and we were having a super hard time. Like there was it was just like we had a really great technical team. Our product kind of was bad, to be honest with you, and we just had a lot of conflicts between the founders because things were going really well. And so what we ended up doing was I basically was faced with the realization that I was going to have to fire all of my friends because they was the only people that would work for me because they were like, oh, we're going to go work on this really small music company that no one's going to care about. Yeah, I think that the only people I really could hire were my friends. And so I just decided, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a way to sell the company. So when I went to sell the company, or when I thought that there was people that might have an interesting, place for us to land or a place where I would work. One of them was Beets by Dre, and they didn't want a subscription music service for DJs. They just wanted a way for their songs to be played, basically a quick way for their songs to be played as part of their new music service. And they were buying a front-end service that's in the US, was called MOG. It was in the US and Australia. But I knew that they didn't have a quality back-end engineering system. So I found them at a conference in Cannes called Meetem, and I approached them at the bar, one of their lawyers, and I just said to them, hey, I know that you're from Beets by Dre. I'm Ryan. You've never heard of me before, but you're about to make an acquisition, and you don't have a back end to go with your front end. So, if you want, I can sell you one real cheap. And they did not buy it. The guy was like, "Who are you? Get the hell away from me! I'm talking to blah 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 from Google." And I was like, well, that didn't work. So they make the acquisition, and then I get a phone call a few weeks later from the attorney, and he's like, how the hell did you know that our diligence was so wrong? And I was like, well, I just paid attention to the market. I was like, you were buying something that didn't have the thing that you actually needed. And you guys thought you were going to get a music service, but instead you got a bunch of people that built a music service that didn't have a backend. You licensed it. You leased it. And the first thing that I learned is that when thinking about how you're selling your company or how to handle like an acquisition or any transition in terms of what you're doing with a particular company that you've built, what I've learned is that not everybody knows what you know, and being patient was very helpful. Because we didn't end up actually selling the company to Beets. What ended up happening was I got a chance to have a very long relationship with those folks, and I was offered the job to run product development for Beets Music. And I got to be honest with you, I was not qualified for that job at all. So that was sort of the first thing I learned. It was just like to really be patient, and also to go out and really, obviously, if you're willing to start a company and risk, your entire life on it, you might as well, fly to Cannes and go to the bar and talk to the lawyer from Beets by Dre every once in a while. The second thing that I learned it was about product development and how to build a company from the inside that is very valuable. So I didn't sell the first one, but we did sell the second one, which was Beets by Dre and Beets Music. And I had the fortune of building a music service, which probably not a lot of you have tried because it was only in America and Australia. But that music service was really shepherded creatively by a guy named Trent Reznor, who is the lead singer of a group called 9 Inch Nails and does a lot of other scoring work and things like that for movies. So he was not someone who had ever built a technological product before, but he understood audiences. And Jimmy Iovine, who is the CEO of Beets and a music industry person, like he had built a lot of artist careers, but he had never built anything technological except for the headphones, which really, it's not software, it's different. So what ended up happening is that there was all this work to be done, not enough people to do it, and Jimmy and Trent gave me this job because they trusted me, and like the rest of the team trusted me to be able to communicate with the engineering team, as well as have good enough taste to not do anything that was stupid. And so and really that was all they wanted. Like they didn't know what a VP of product did or a head of product did. They were just like, build the thing that we want, and then tell us when it's wrong, but don't do anything dumb, and make sure the engineers know how to build it. And just, they trusted all of us with making sure that we were not going to make a too technical solution, that we were going to keep the heart and soul of what they had tried to create real when we made it digitally. And so the only way that you can do that in an environment where you have we grew from 20 people with the acquisition of Mog to 220 people in less than a year. We ended up selling the company. We knew we were selling the company roughly 8 weeks after we launched the product to Apple. And so that was a pretty accelerated rate of growth. And so the only way that we were able to keep everything on track was to not think of it like typical company structure. The only thing we could do was just basically say we're doing one thing, which is building an experience that people are going to look at from the moment they first realize that Beats Music exists to the moment that they make an emotional decision about it. And everything in the middle, whether it was a piece of technology, a marketing campaign, a customer service interaction, any of that stuff, what ended up happening was we just threw it on a storyboard. Because they were like, this is the possible experience of someone when they go through and they have experience with our brand and with our product. So we thought of everything that the company produced as the product. Because Jimmy and Trent, who were really the ones running the show, they had no idea the difference between a phone call from customer service, what a product button meant, or an engineering task, or a marketing task. They didn't care. They were like, this is part of our brand. This is part of our service. We have an audience. We want to communicate with them emotionally. So the only way that we could do that was to create huge storyboards and use storytelling as the way for making a quality experience. And the key factor in each interaction was to use trust. So the second thing I learned is that regardless of whatever sector you're in, regardless of what company you're trying to build, or if it's deep tech or marketing or entertainment or music or whatever, that the most important thing that will drive your product into being something that other people want, especially what other companies want, is to create trust with your audience. That could be an audience. Oh, rocking it outside. Cool. That's where I'll be after this. That was basically that you build trust with your audience, and that trust is more valuable than almost any technology that you can build. Yes, people make small acquisitions for technology, but really the major acquisitions happen because they've built a brand and experience that people want, and they want to integrate the intelligence and the insights created in that organization to the larger organization. Now, the last thing, once we were acquired into Apple, it was probably the most difficult time in my career. I don't know how much of you guys followed any of this, but what happened is that we were acquired. We knew we would be acquired. It leaked to the media. Dr. Dre got drunk. Then he made a video of himself calling himself the biggest billionaire in hip hop. Then that was an interesting weekend. And then the next week, it eventually came out and it was more official and whatnot. I basically was running a team. My CTO was, but my counterpart had a blood infection at the time. So he was really out and pretty ill. And so we had a team of a few hundred people that all had heard on the news that we were selling a company that they were a part of. And they were pretty exhausted from launching the product. So so at that moment, I had to basically be in front of everyone and talk to them about what was happening. And I have to say, like, everybody talked about how Alex from SoundCloud went up on stage yesterday and talked about, the layoffs that he had to make at SoundCloud. And I frankly applaud him for what he did around making sure that his staff was communicated to first, and that was the primary thing that he wanted to take care of, because that is the most important thing, which was the last thing I learned, is that the staffing, like making sure that your staff and your people know just as much as you do, as fast as possible when in that process of doing an acquisition or trying to transition control of a company. It is so crucial. I think I made the biggest mistakes of my career in terms of relationships I really cared about by like worrying about Apple's NDA process, or worrying that I was going to leak more information, or that person was going to leak or not. Because what ended up happening is, for about 2.5 months, I don't think anybody on our team trusted each other. Like, everybody looked at me like I was crazy, because I was like, well, I can't confirm or deny the fact that Dre's on a video saying he's a billionaire. I can't confirm or deny that, that we are, I'm going to be in Cupertino tomorrow. Like, and so, like, it becomes this very strange situation in which someone who they look to as a trusted source, me, ended up being someone that they couldn't trust for this period of time, because they didn't know what I was saying was true or not, or what was going on. And all of those people had just like busted their ass to make sure that was possible. They didn't buy the service. They didn't buy Beets by Dre because they wanted another headphones company. They bought it because they wanted to be competitive in music and entertainment and build a software and services division at Apple. And so, like, we were the ones that really busted our ass to make it happen. And my repaying of that favor was telling them, well, I can't tell you anything, for months. And I wish that I had handled it differently. There's a couple situations in which I didn't let some people go. They left because they didn't want to stick around in the company anymore. And I did my best to encourage them, to be smart about how they handled their stock options. Now, I left Apple a few years ago, or a year and a half ago, mostly because the culture of working at a really big political organization was really challenging. And I started working with new entrepreneurs, and it really is like a very invigorating process. Like, everyone who's going to start a company, hats off to you. It's so much more. It's so invigorating to watch and see people succeed and fail and learn, really. But what I realized is that I had a way unique experience, and I didn't realize it because it just seemed like it was normal. I felt like, it's just normal that Dr. Dre does that. It's just normal that you end up, that you end up like working with some of these people. And one of the reasons why I took the job in venture is to basically be able to help people with some of the things that I learned. So whether it's how to think about selling a company that didn't really work out, and finding a way that makes it valuable to somebody, or whether it's utilizing storytelling and psychology to develop a product that is so in line with the company's values that they offer you way more than it's worth, and then we complete the sale, or whether it's making a huge amount of mistakes in terms of handling your staff, and really, finding that, even in the situation of great success, you can be incredibly flawed, and that it's important to not lose sight of your self-awareness while you're going through a moment that you've been trying to shoot for, because that's oftentimes the moment in which you lose it. So now I'm doing investing. If you guys have companies or something and you want to talk about that, I'd be happy to talk to you about new companies. My email address is ryan@floodgate.com. My Twitter is localbyproxy. And I really appreciate you coming and listening to me yammer on and just tell you a couple stories. And if you want to hear any more about that, or you have any questions about how to build your company that don't involve asking for money, I'm really interested in answering those. So I'll be happy to take questions.
Any questions for Ryan? All right, let's see how I do. Okay, good.
Lawrence,
Hey, what's up?
You got to talk into the box. It's a real
hello.
thing.
Talking to the box.
Talk to the box. Okay. Since the very first thing you said is you would like to have a conversation versus like, hey, pitch me and talk about money and whatever.
Yeah.
Where do you feel like that story begins? Because often, you have to make a distinction between a hard pitch or really getting to know a person, right?
Well, I mean, I'll give you the spiel on the investment side, which I didn't get to because of time and me yammering on about random parts of the Apple story. The way that I make investment decisions are threefold. I have a product. I look for a product insight, a distribution insight, and a market insight. And I actually don't care what the insights are. I don't really care that much about the product, and I frankly don't usually care that much about the market or distribution. What I actually care about is the way that you come up with those insights and that they are valuable. Like and I was saying this yesterday, like the most important thing, I'm an early stage investor, the most important thing is to bet on people that have a great way of thinking. Because if you can tell me at an early stage that your market and company and everything is going to be the same in 3 years as it is today, most of the time you're wrong. Most of the time I'm wrong. At least I've been wrong. Maybe you're not, but I certainly have been. So my experience tells me that betting on people, and not just saying, I'm betting on the best top entrepreneurs in the world. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like, yeah, no, you know what, I'm Ryan, I'm at Floodgate. We invest in the worst entrepreneurs. Like, of course you're gonna invest in the best entrepreneurs, but what does best mean? In our case, best means that people that have the ability to create 3 insights that match together to create an unfair advantage for them. So to get to a conversation, like whether you're having a conversation about a company early on or whether they're asking for money or not, that's kind of always what we're trying to get to, at least what I'm trying to get to. And I prefer having more personal relationships that end up being investments rather than investments that end up being personal relationships. And frankly, a lot of VCs have a lot of different ways of approaching it. I mean, I think our fund strategy has nothing to do with money, but has everything to do with the fact that I have close to unlimited time to go out and help the market and help the world. So I can come out and talk about this, and then I can go do something else and meet with a company and give them free feedback. So I can give you a bunch of feedback, you can take it or leave it, and if I just keep doing that over and over and over again, we make all boats rise. And if we make all boats rise, eventually we'll find the right things to invest in. And it doesn't matter if we miss one big thing or we make one wrong decision, because how we're acting in the market is just building relationships and helping everybody succeed. It's not like some people look at VC as like a sales job where you have to compete and elbow people out. I need this 15% or whatever. Ignore those VCs. They're horrible. I would never want to work with them. I frankly don't think that, I mean, like when I came into VC, I thought that was how they all were, and I thought it was kind of a shitty job. And then I met people that weren't like that, and I was like, oh, okay, there's a different way. That answer your question? That's kind of long.
That was very long, yeah. But
yeah, that was very long.
Very long.
By the way, I love Germany. Yeah. It's like in America, somebody's like, no, that was really great. In Germany, it's like, no, that was long. And I'm like, great.
Well, speaking of long, that's all the time we have. Thank you, Ryan.